Could I please ask all those who are speaking? We wish to acknowledge the traditional descendants who are with us to the Shire's new and updated first of many more joinable agenda in 2021 and how to go about being successful. Thank you. All right, record of attendance. Troy has a previously approved question. We've received some questions. Mr. Mike Norton from Capel.
Build-up sale yards was dealt with animal welfare issues, onshore and offshore. It's happened since 2000. Fatalities later, and they're not happy. Shire is due guidelines, and there is some later. Yeah, it's up to the Shire, and made some very good points. And I guess with where we go with relocating the state-of-the-art relocated sale yard, the better off the Boynup people, the sale yard people are going to be. I've already finished up with it, and of course the cash is gone. Politicians and manage the project for relocation. So, Mr. Chairman, I guess the thing is, we need a bit of confidence from the Shire as to when and how you're going to do it, because I think we've run out of time, and the quicker that happens, the better. So, can you reassure us that you're going to work with industry to get those yards relocated as quick as possible? Otherwise, we get a different how much money we spend there.
Try and answer your points there. In financial year, election study yards.
One, and you set the lease agreement for Walser. That they'll be very happy to take you on as associate members for a cost of $450, which is not a bad return when you're going to get, if you may get 80,000 or 70 or 80,000 out of it. And they're working with Meat and Livestock Australia at the moment to put in place quality assurance programs for sale yards. There was a company, but I believe they went into receivership. And they've got a lot of expertise in sale yards right across Australia, which would be very handy for your staff to tap into when you're negotiating the lease agreements with the livestock agents. Traditionally, livestock agents don't become a member of ALMA. They tend to do their own thing, a bit like Walser is. So I think it would be a really good opportunity for the Capel Shire to join ALMA and access that information and put a bit of credibility behind what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Norton. The Shire will take your suggestion on notice. We know that the Boynup Sale Yards is currently not a member yard, and we're also unclear as to how Shire's membership would work in that situation, and we would need to consider whether the result may result in a conflict of interest. As we have already mentioned, the Shire is committed to ensuring that any progress moving forward is fully open and consultative, involving all industry stakeholders and representatives.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you. Don Finlay of Boynup.
Not sure if all of the present attendance was here on the 19th, because we do have absentees. Mr. Clues isn't here tonight, but hello to anyone that I didn't speak to last meeting. At that meeting, I kind of was up front and said, who are those two people over there, if you recall that? And one was a recording and one was infrastructure, right?
Yes, they are our
Correct.
directors. Yep.
I didn't maybe perhaps explain who I was. And I just want to, as Mr. Norton did tonight, a bit of my background. I immigrated to southwest of Western Australia in 2003, mid-January. And I worked in mixed veterinary practice, Donnybrook, Collie, Eaton, Brunswick Junction, and a year term with the Department of Agriculture in 2005. And now I actively conduct a cattle practice on my own. And I'm not a retired veterinarian. And my documents have licensure, and it's because and administrating, fielding those questions. That is the second question.
The licensing and operation of working alongside the RSPCA. They are the agencies responsible.
Man, woman, or child that calls here about those cattle yards, how does that feedback happen? How do they really have the thought and idea that someone has listened and responded to them?
Through you, Chair, as I just mentioned, I listened to the gentleman, and the gentleman did not want to leave his name and did not want to leave his contact details, so he made the choice not to.
Even though they
Council deferred signing the new lease until the upgrades are carried out, because that lease will not stand unless the work has been done prior to the leases being signed. It wouldn't be worth the paper it's written on. So I'm very concerned, and a lot of other, and this is going to do a lot of harm to the beef industry if this photo goes on the front of the West Australian. One producer said, ring the Federal Minister for Agriculture, David Littleproud, and make him informed, because the Minister is doing nothing and the Ag Department is doing nothing, and nor is any other organisation. So I'd like to table these photos here to the Council for their records, and the Council's to have a look at the setup that's in there. I'll guarantee not one councillor would stand in one of those pens at 42, 41 degree heat and drink hot water out of a trough. Thank you very much.
It is a responsibility of the Department and Regional Development. They are the agency responsible for the administration and
the data that the environmental team collate, and also to point two, I'm not sure that an incentive program is probably, in terms of rebate on machines and the like, traps, I'm not quite sure that that will be our place. Once again, I'd rather see maybe a bit more focus on larvicide, and once again, as Councillor McCleary said, maybe hitting habitat problems before they start, rather than going down that track. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Andrew?
Thank you. I don't see a problem with this motion. It's purely authorising the investigation of the program and the validity of offering such a rebate. It's not actually authorising the expenditure of any funds. And I actually think it might complement the previous motion regarding the mosquitoes quite nicely, with some more community involvement. So I'm happy to support this motion.
I think everyone's spoken, and then it just leaves me. So I suppose I'll say something then, just so it's the whole table then. Look, I've been sitting on the fence of this one for a couple of days, because last month we adopted a mosquito management plan, as well as a few other initiatives going forward for the community, and the formation of a community consultation panel which will look at these. So I was sort of thinking, you know, are we jumping the gun a little bit? Is this something that the community's after? Because a lot of this feedback that I saw from the community regarding mosquitoes was they wanted more up-to-date data from the department and the Shire regarding mosquito numbers, but also how better to communicate that with them. At the same token, this is only an investigation to have a look into whether this program is actually feasible, whether it would achieve the desired outcome, as well as if incentives such as rebates would actually be effective. So, look, I'm pretty happy to actually have a look into the program, see what there is. You know, we might actually find something else out about it. So, I'm happy to support that. Yeah, and just see what we come up with. So, all right, Councillor. Oh, is there any other speakers? Oh no, you can't. Councillor Noon, would you like to close debate?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank all the councillors for their input, and yeah, to echo the sentiments of Councillor Mogg, Andrew and Kitchen. This is not actually spending any money. At this stage, all it is authorising the CEO to have a look at an issue which has been brought up by the community. This was brought to us by the community as a major concern. They called a special electors meeting and presented 6 motions which we accepted. It follows on from briefings from Fight the Bite and the WA Health Department. The biggest issue has been communication of what is actually being done. An enormous amount of work is being done by the Health Department and by the CLAG, which is all the local governments involved in or with mosquito breeding problems. But that information, that awareness of what's actually being done, isn't getting out to the community. So this is a proposal to give the CEO the ability to go and investigate. Is there a way that we can better communicate what's being done, and also to give people a greater sense that they can be involved, that a sense of ownership, so that they can participate in managing this mosquito problem or investigating it. Now we have bioscientists in Western Australia of international renown, such as Professor Barry Marshall, the Nobel Prize winner. UWA has a very highly regarded microbiology department. Other universities also have entomology departments. There are many PhD students, many master's students who are actively involved in research programs, and it may well just be that there is someone who's looking around for something that they would like to solve. Mosquitoes are the greatest vector for human disease. They're the greatest vector for human diseases. So everything from Zika virus to malaria to dengue fever, Ross River virus, all of those bloodborne diseases, viruses and diseases are a result of the problems with mosquitoes. So I think that any research that could be done to either reduce the problem or to reduce the ability for mosquitoes to breed, for the ability for them to pass on any of those diseases, all of those things are worthwhile areas for communities and for councils to get involved in. And I think that this is a great opportunity. It's not simply about saying or giving the community, well, it is certainly about giving the community the sense that something is being done, but this is more than just a feel-good sort of exercise. It should be, and if it's done well, I believe that it could be an important addition to our mosquito management program, and it could be a public relations bonus for the Shire that I think would be worth investigating. And at this stage, that's all we're asking. Let's investigate it. So, thank you. I'd like to commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. And with that, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 4-2. All right. Questions of which previous notice has been given? There are none. And Chief Executive Office reports? There are none. Move on to item 14, infrastructure and development reports. 14.1, extractive industry, lot 202 and 333, Nibo Road, Gwyndanup. All right, there's an officer's recommendation there. Is there a mover? Councillor McCleary. Is there a seconder? Councillor Dillon. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this one's pretty straightforward. It's good that there's been some input in, I'm pretty sure it was this one that had the, Michael Tichborne added some words about the planting of vegetation.
Just, sorry, we're still in a meeting here.
Mosquitoes, they've got to provide us 3 times.
Yep.
And the specialist says, found out now that you can't reach it away.
Right, thank you. Yep. Apologies, Councillor McCleary. Would you please continue?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, lost track of things. It mentions a bond, bank guarantee, much the same thing. So there's a bit of coverage of things per hectare, 29,000 per hectare, which covers off some of the shortfalls in there. We talked about the traffic management. There's been a lot of input from external parties. So yeah, look, I think this is a good move for the economics of the Shire.
Sure. Councillor Dillon.
Nothing really to add, Mr. President. Thank you.
No. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker for? Any comments or discussion? Councillor McCleary, wish to close? No?
So,
No? All right, I'll put that one to the vote then. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimous. 14.2, Extractive Industry, Lot 333, Nybo Road, Gwindanup. Is there a mover for that officer's recommendation? Councillor McCleary. Is there a seconder? Councillor Dillon. Councillor McCleary.
Pretty much the same as the previous one. I think there's good information. The Shire officers have done some good work in this one, identified all the requirements of it. Yeah.
Councillor Dillon.
Once again, Mr. President, not much to add. So, yeah, it's a good development. I think we should move ahead with it.
Is there any speakers against the motion? Speakers for? Councillor Noonan.
thank you, Mr. President. If we could make sure that the recommendations by Michael Tichborne and the Capel LCDC could be attached to that motion, that would be great.
If I could provide comment on that, Councillor, those recommendations have been included. Are there any speakers for or against? Councillor McCleary, do you wish to close?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, look, as pointed out, I'd like to recognise the input from Michael Tichborne, which was good on this item, to give a bit of a direction to different types of vegetation and avoid some of the pesky plants that might have been used in the original plan for rehabilitation.
All right, I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimous. 14.3, Request for Tender 21-15B, In Situ Concrete and Curbing Supply. Is there a mover for that recommendation? Councillor McCleary. Is there a seconder? Councillor Noonan. Councillor McCleary.
I think this one's pretty straightforward. It's been a tender process, and the conclusion is reasonable.
Councillor Noonan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Nothing to add.
Is there a speaker against the motion? Speakers for? Any comments? Councillor McCleary? No? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimous. Right, we now move on to section 15, Community and Corporate Reports. 15.1, the 2021 Compliance Audit Return. Sorry? Did that change? That's the audit report. The annual report. All right, sorry about that. Is there a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Andrew. Speakers for. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's a good reflection of the council, how it's performed over the period, and I notice there's only one no in the whole scheme, which was a pretty small amount. So it's been quite a good report.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Andrew, you wish to close? No? I'll put that one to the vote then. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimous. 15.2, the Shire of Capel 2020-2021 Annual Report. I'd just like to remind councillors and those who are following along that there is an alternative recommendation that has been provided by officers due to a delay in receiving our financials from the Office of the Auditor General. So that alternative recommendation, is there a mover? Councillor McCleary. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mogg. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's good that we've got this alternative motion, because there was a few things that I had concerns about in the original motion. It's indicated that it is a first draft, so there's a bit more work to go through before it's presented back and presented to the community as a final draft. Yeah, that's about it.
Councillor Mogg. Is there any speakers against motion? Speakers for? Any comments? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Look, I do note in the report it talked about change in the council, which has happened over the first few years. I think what's encouraging since my time on council, which is probably the longest of anyone, is there's actually a greater number of people putting their hand up to try and get on council, which is a good reflection of the community and what they want to get involved with council. So it could have been written a bit better in some of the words there, but I think it's conveying that, yeah, there's change there, and we've got a community that's starting to get quite active.
Thank you, Councillor. And with that, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? It's carried unanimous. Okay. Okay. Just hold on a sec. Just while that's. Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thank you, Councillor. 15.3, the 2021-22 Minor Community Grants Scheme Round 2. There is a recommendation there. Is there a mover? Councillor Mogg. Seconder? Councillor Noonan. Councillor Mogg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I get excited about community groups and funding for them, and just like to say I'm very pleased to see that the Ironstone Gully group were included in this round. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, absolutely, to echo Councillor Mogg's pleasure at moving this motion. It's very pleasing to see, and the money, I believe, will be spent very, very well in those organisations.
Thank you. Is there any speakers against the motion? Speakers for? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's interesting what community groups come up for grants from time to time, and the Ironstone Riding Clubs, it's probably not enough background in the agenda item except for the attachments. This is a club that's been running for quite a while and does quite an enthusiastic activity out in the bush further down the stream, so it's good to see that a bit of support coming from the council for that group.
Are there any other speakers for or against? Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I'd just like to elaborate on something that came up at the agenda briefing on Monday, the fact that a lot of the council grants on offer are being taken up. I think we're practically fully subscribed over the last period, so it's good to see our local community groups getting involved, putting submissions in, and good to see council backing them. So I glad to see this motion come forward.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No. Councillor Mogg, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for sentiments from other fellow councillors, and just conclude with the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will put it to the vote. Those in favour? And that's carried. Unanimous. 15.4, the accounts paid for the month of January 2022. Is there a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Dillon. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mogg. Councillor Dillon.
Just as presented, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mogg. Is there any speakers against the motion? Is there any speakers in general? Councillor McCleary.
You just got one question about the septic tank pump out at the yellow. I had assumed at the sports pavilion that was connected to the sewer. Is that still yet to happen? Okay, thanks.
Yep. Bit happy? Yep. Any further speakers? Councillor Dillon, would you like to close? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that's carried. Unanimous. 15.5, the financial statements for the 31st of December 2021. All right. Is there a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Mogg. Is there a seconder? Councillor Noonan. Councillor Mogg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll accept as read.
Thank you. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Happy to present them as read.
Are there any speakers for or against? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 77, you've got the year-to-date capital expenses budget versus actual.
Yep.
The budget, I estimate, following where we were last year, about $6 million to spend to the end. Is that what capital project is that?
The Director of Community and Corporate.
Thank you. Just through the chair. In terms of capital projects, there are a number of capital projects yet that still require completion before the end of the year. When we share the mid-year budget review with Council, and obviously we'll do that through the workshop next week and through the March report, we will identify what those capital projects are at that point. But there are a few, hence obviously why you can see it's below trend.
Anything further? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Mogg, would you like to close? No? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Unanimous. All right. 15.6, the Audit Committee revised terms of reference. Is there a mover for that recommendation? Councillor McCleary. Is there a seconder? Councillor Noonan. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Recommendation.
Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's probably worthwhile just pointing out for the gallery and those watching online that one of the significant revisions to the proposed terms of reference is the inclusion of the appointment of an independent chairperson, an independent member of the committee. So this is a recommendation that this will come up following a period of public advertisement. And it's interesting, initially I was quite sceptical about the idea of getting someone in from the outside, and I was a bit concerned that you know, you're creating potentially you know, you don't necessarily know who you're getting. However, after discussions and the briefings on Monday and the reassurances from council officers that, you know, this is done in other places, and examples of where it's been very useful to bring in or to get skills that we don't necessarily have sitting around the table here. So I'm quite comfortable with that concept now, and I am very happy to endorse the officer's recommendation for this motion.
Thank you, councillor. Is there speakers against the motion? Speakers for? Any discussion? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a good outcome to have an independent person sitting on the meeting and give some guidance there. It gives a bit of full independence to it. I do know that it's a committee of council, so any decisions of that committee still come back to the general council, so we've got other controls in there. But it is a good outcome to get an independent person looking at the results of council, where they don't really have skin in the game like the rest of us, but yeah, good result.
All right, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimous. Item 16, new business of an urgent nature. There is none. Item 17, public question time. Are there any questions from the public gallery? No? All right, I'll move on. Motions without notice. Is there any? No? Item 19, notice of motions for consideration at the next ordinary meeting of the council. There's none. All right, we'll move on to item 20, items for consideration behind closed doors. As forewarned, we do have one item, item 20.1, the Shire of Capel Chief Executive Officer finalisation of probation period review. I will move that the council goes behind closed doors for consideration of the item. Thank you for those who have been in attendance tonight. Is there a second for Councillor Dillon? Just wait for Councillor to resume his seat. Yeah, I'll just wait for. Not till the vote's had, but I'll wait till you resume your seat. All right, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimous. All right, now that we're back from behind closed doors, I'd like to inform the public that the Council has, 1, endorsed the HR Consultants Report in Attachment 1 as the review undertaken through the CEO Performance Review Panel, and 2, endorses the recommendations contained in the probation review of the Chief Executive Officer Report, and that was passed unanimous. Just before I close tonight, I'd just like to again welcome our substantive directors in their appointments, but I'd also just like to pay a particular thank you to 2 staff members that have acted in roles, namely Kristen McKechnie and Roy Grieve, who have acted in the director positions over the past year or two. Their work has not gone unnoticed, and it is very much thanked and appreciated by this council. All right. There being no further business on the agenda tonight, I will declare the meeting closed at 12 minutes past 7. Thank you very much.